The information presented in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not meant to be a substitute for clinical mental health treatment. If you or someone you know is experiencing a mental health crisis, please dial 988 or head to your nearest emergency room.
Welcome to another episode of the Black People Die by Suicide 2 podcast, where our mission is to normalize the conversation about suicide within the Black community. And today I'm really excited. As you all know, I'm your co-host, Takia. We have a special guest today, and I'm riding solo without my co-host, Jordan. But that's because we believe we practice giving from our overflow in our organization. We don't give from our cup at all. Mm-hmm. So my co-host is taking time away to refill her cup. And before we get started with every episode, we like to talk about our psychological fortitude and our PF by the amazing Dr. Rita Walker. So we added that to our podcast. So before I introduce our guests, we always have our wellness check to see like how we're doing, to really encourage us to get in tune with like how we're actually feeling, if it shows up in our body, if it showed like how it's showing up for us. So for my wellness check, I would say that I am feeling stressed and excited. I'm stressed because this organization is taking off faster than we anticipated. And it's a good thing. So I'm stressed, but I'm excited because Dr. Martin is in the building, who I'm about to introduce. And so for those who may be new and never listened to the podcast, psychological fortitude is a term that was coined by Dr. Rita Walker. And it's basically our ability to be able to be self-aware and to check in to see how we're doing mentally, physically, emotionally, and psychologically. And you rate yourself on a scale of 0 to 10. And Dr. Walker says that if you are below a 6, that means that it's time to check in with ourselves. And 0 meaning I'm in a mental health crisis, I'm struggling to be alive, versus 10, I am doing fantastic and nothing can hold me down. So if I had to give myself a number, I'm going to give myself about a good 8 today, which is pretty good. So today, as I mentioned, we are joined by the esteemed Dr. Raquel Martin, who we all love. And if you don't know who Dr. Martin is, then you've probably been living under a rock. I don't really know, but Dr. Martin is a licensed clinical psychologist, a professor, content creator, a researcher, a scientist, a speaker, just downright badass, okay? Who truly believes in the power of, when we're talking about mental health, but Black mental wealth. Mm-hmm. And she's also the co-host of the Mind Your Mental podcast. So I'm so excited to have you. I've been following you for a very long time. So thank you so much for accepting the invitation to be on the podcast. So I have to ask you how you're doing, and you also have to rate your psychological fortitude.
Well, one, I'm going to tell Dr. Rita you quoted her because she's going to love that. And 2, I would say maybe I would be right at a 6. No, you know what? Honestly, I would probably say like a 5. Probably like a 5. It's been an exhausting week going back and forth with people about paying me. Trying to come up with some time to do some new fun projects, trying to go to the gym, drink water, play with the boys, give myself some time. I would say like a 5. Yeah, I would say like a 5.
I love the transparency because it also shows that clinicians are people. Like, y'all not exempt from life happening. And I feel like that sometimes when people think, they tend to place y'all like, it's like, I'm a whole human.
I'm a whole human. I have a psychologist too. I have a business coach too. I think I just started a relationship with a life coach. Like I very much get high on my own supply when it comes to the impact of having therapy and having a support system and all that. I mean, shoot, My husband just texted me yesterday telling me that like school for my oldest starts in 2 weeks. I had no idea. No idea. But in my defense, we live down south. I'm from the East Coast. Where I'm from, school starts the week after Labor Day. Down here, school starts August 6th. Like it's so random. So I'm just like,
that's early.
It's very early. So I was like, wow. I had to check to make sure I was in town because I'm traveling so much for speaking. Luckily, I am. But yeah, I had no idea. So yeah, that's the main reason why I got on social media. And in addition to providing like free resources, also to kind of like demystify the aspect of like mental health and therapy and let you know that like clinicians look and talk and walk just like you. We just happen to be, experts in the field when it comes to mental health. But like, even when you're sitting across from me, you're always going to be the expert when it comes to you. So I really wanted to break down that whole third wall and even to show that psychologists look like me. Only 5% of licensed psychologists are Black. So I wanted people to know, like, yeah, mental health professionals look like me too.
Absolutely. I have a Black psychologist who I've been rocking with. September will be 9 years. I've been rocking with Dr. T. Okay, we locked in. So I have tons of questions and we probably won't get to all of them. Mm-hmm. But many times people often think about like generational wealth in terms of money, right? Yeah. Can you talk about like generational wellness and what that can look like?
Yeah, I think a lot of times we think about these things in terms of like wealth, in terms of money and finances and like tangible items. Even when we talk about Black excellence, I kind of think at this point, Black excellence tends to dehumanize people in a way that like other people do to us outside of our community. But the same way people talk about breaking generational curses, I think about generational wealth as building generational bonds. And I think that's anything that allows you to see yourself as a human in an environment, humanize yourself and those around you, providing yourself with compassion so that you can provide compassion to others, because I think that's what gets in the way of a lot of people from finding joy in community. It's like it's hard to recognize compassion in someone else when you don't even really provide compassion to yourself. And I think it's just taking care of your emotional well-being and knowing that that's okay, and understanding that that's connected to so many different things. Like emotional well-being, wealth, Black wealth isn't just the mental aspect of it. It's the emotional aspect of it. It's the social aspect of it. It's the community aspect of it. But I don't think you're able to lock into any of that if you're not even checking in with like how you're doing, bare bones, like how you're feeling. And it's so cliche because people will be like, always asking how you're feeling. It's like, because sometimes I don't even think I think you're going off of like knee-jerk reactions and you haven't had a time to sit with yourself and you don't really know how you're feeling. And maybe that's why you've given off a funky attitude, because you didn't check in with yourself to know that like, hey, maybe I shouldn't have come to this event because I'm not feeling good. And now my funky mood is ruining the event. So like, yeah, you need to know how you're feeling. You need to check in with yourself before you engage with other people.
Yeah, and I think we're just so used to operating on autopilot. Mm-hmm. That's part of it. We just kind of get caught in the daily task of life. It's like, get up, go to work, take care of the kids. Like, it's just, and before you know it, you're like, a lot of times we don't really check in with ourselves until we're forced to. So, and part of taking care of ourselves, and I always tell people all the time, like, self-care is preventative care. Mm-hmm. Like, we tend not to think about it that way. It's like, when I have time to do, to eat, like, you just at your desk. Sometimes I'm guilty, but like, wait, just 5 more minutes, and you just keep going. Yeah. But making sure that you're eating, making sure that you are taking time for yourself. And that's how it has shifted for me to say like, I don't have time for self-care. No, I can't afford not to practice self-care, And I think we tend to just kind of think about it as an afterthought, or we view it as like just the vacations and the spa. And it's like, that can be, but sometimes, and I think you posted something on it, like sometimes self-care is not pretty, like,
yeah, it's not even fun half the time. I think sometimes people think it's an indulgence. Like you mentioned the perfect example of a vacation. And right. I think very much like people have monetized the aspect of self-care, like companies and spas and things like that. And I can't stand that because I think it makes it less approachable for people and thinking that it's out of their reach. And self-care doesn't have to be something as indulgent as a vacation. It very much can be. That could be one aspect of your self-care, but I think it's easier. I wish people would break it down a little bit more. Like self-care is a pretty daunting statement. One, it's really just the things that get you to being able to function in your day-to-day. But there's so many different categories of it that I think just the thought of self-care becomes overwhelming to people because there's financial self-care, there's physical self-care, there's emotional self-care, there's social self-care, there's environmental self-care. And I think in combination with the fact of people thinking that like, oh, it's a vacation, I'm not going to be able to afford that. I think it's really daunting just to put self-care in a big, wide category. So I think if people just like broke it down a little bit more, it would be way more approachable. Like financial self-care is something as simple as budgeting. Social self-care is seeing if you have a supportive environment around you. And if not, when's the last time you were able to work on building that? Environmental self-care can be something as simple as like, I know it sounds, it's very cliche, but like being in a mess is hard for your brain to kind of like focus. So environmental self-care can be like right now I have 5 monster trucks for my boys on this side. I got a stack of Uno cards on this side. I got 4 Bluey characters, a cup of tea that I don't even know how long this has been here, and AirPod case. Like as soon as like we're done recording, I'm like, okay, so I'm going to need the space to be cleaned up so I can sit down and work so that I'm able to do it. But when you break it down in more tangible ways like that, everyone can understand how self-care is something that's approachable for you. It's self-care, but a lot of times I really just think about it in terms of discipline. But I can understand why people will think it's out of their reach because, yeah, why would you think it's a vacation? I always encourage people to try to break it down into categories and then come up with one task that you can work on. And then once you feel like you've gotten the hang of that task, then add something else. Like when you worked on this one thing, say your social self-care is you're not taking phone calls from anyone after 8 p.m. When you're able to stick to that for like 3 weeks, then we can add something. But so many times people are like, I'm going to add a budget and then I'm going to join the gym and then I'm going to drink 5 liters of water a day. And then I'm also going to pay off all my debt in a month. And it's like, I mean, that sounds like a lot. I think a budget is a good place to start. Like start with the budget. Because a lot of people, we walk around just swiping our card, praying it don't decline. When it's like, if you already think that there's not enough money in your account and this isn't like a bill or something, why are you swiping your card? Let's have some sense here. It's financial self-care. Like let's work on
this. Yes. If for people who may not picked up on it or peep game, Dr. Martin was talking about the 8 dimensions of wellness. Okay.
I never use technical words because honestly, sometimes people's eyes glaze over as soon as so I'd be like, all right, I got you. I totally understand it. We did this talk at Black Health Connect, which is this amazing conference in DC.
Oh yes, congratulations too. Yes. Because I'm in the DC area. I wasn't able to go as planned, but
I'm going every single year. But run by Dr. Duclos Charles, and like in the in the room we're talking about all of these like instances of things to manage, and somebody asked the question about like, how do I get my parent to understand the fact that like I'm stressed out, and I'm like, well, maybe don't even use the word self-care because sometimes simply the word you'll get. All right, now the generation. I should have never brought y'all to America because now y'all need all this self-care. Just go to med school. Here's a choice in your career. You could be a doctor or engineer or a lawyer. Those are your choices. You guys, kids have too many choices these days. So I'm also very open with the aspect that like sometimes the name of things just simply makes stuff unapproachable. I did research at Meharry Medical College for the longest, and I remember it's community-based participatory research, so recruiting in the community was amazing. But I remember when I started, people would wear their white coats, like the other doctors would wear their white coats to recruitment. And I'm like, the primary people working with are Black people. I was like, Black people and most people of the global majority honestly have a significant white coat fear. So this aspect of you guys trying, you're wearing all your coats and you're trying to make sure people understand your realm of expertise. you're actually making yourself less approachable, and you're less likely to be able to have people participate in this study, which is an amazing study. But like, we have a justified white coat fear. So sometimes you miss people before you even open your mouth. And sometimes you miss people by using the wrong words. So I just be like, all right, so like money, money, cash. Sorry. Oh my God. But yeah, so
I know what you mean.
I was about to say money, cash. I was about to just go into a rant. But like I meant like, emotional, social, think about it that way. Just try to break it down because it is overwhelming. I'm a psychologist. I've focused on this my whole life, and I can totally understand people being overwhelmed by like all this stuff that they have to do. But honestly, it's been neglected for so long. That's one of the things that makes it even more overwhelming.
Absolutely. And even I tell people all the time, like part of my self-care, people know, this is a perfect segue into why Dr. Martin is here. Like part of my self-care, people already know Takia is not going to answer her phone after 8 o'clock because your girl gets up at 4 a.m. to go to a 5 a.m. workout class. Mm-hmm. So people already know. Part of my self-care is I need to make sure I'm actually getting sleep. People don't think, and I say all the time, like, it's great. We could take those vacations, but if we're neglecting our mental and emotional health when we get back from the vacation, depression's still going to meet us. So sometimes trying to not use it there's a difference between taking a moment to kind of get yourself together versus like avoiding and isolating yourself. Like and I think sometimes people don't know the difference between that. And so I would love for you to kind of talk about the big topic of boundaries, because I remember when I saw your video, not only did I send it to my therapist, I was like, we got to talk about this, sis.
About boundaries versus rules. A lot of people mix them up. Yes. I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of people mix them up. And I think it's easy to do that because, some people get a mental health word or a mental health concept and they want to run with it. And then the original resource isn't helpful or they didn't get the full gamut of it. I think a lot of people mix them up. Boundaries are meant to guide your behavior. Rules attempt to guide someone else's. I tell my son all the time when he's telling my other son, like, don't say that or do this or you're too loud. And I'm like, the only person whose behavior you can guide is yours. So if he's too loud and we're in this area, go on, sit on the couch. And, the loudness is because he's so close to you. But like he's sitting here having fun. If it's annoying you, go see someone else. The only person whose body you control is yours. So move your body to the couch. Or deal with the fact that you just don't like how loud he is. You can't control your brother's behavior. I can't control your behavior. Like, I just be like, the only person whose behavior you can change is your own. Like, that's so, my brother's noise is annoying me. And now, mind you, he could say, Jaden, you're too loud. And Jaden could choose to lower his volume. But he was just like irritated with his brother. He was doing it on purpose. So he was just like, I'm not about to do it. And neither one of myself or my husband were annoyed. So we just like, well.
He was the only one that was annoyed.
He was the only one that was annoyed. And he said, I asked nicely, Mama. And I said, you sure did. And you know what? Sometimes people don't listen even if you ask them nicely. I ask you nicely all the time. How's that turn out for me, honey? How's that working for me? Like that don't matter. It's because I can't control your behavior. So it's just rules attempt to guide someone else's. And a lot of times, and I want people to understand, like, rules have their role in relationships as well. But the reason why it's important to differentiate between the two is because there are a lot of times when boundaries are violated, and it's the only person who can violate your boundaries are you. And when that happens, you have to ask yourself questions about what got in the way of you maintaining your boundary so that you're able to work towards sustaining it in the future, right? Like, if the boundary has been violated, you could ask yourself, like, okay, so what got in the way of that? Was it the person I was dealing with? A lot of times our boundaries are pretty malleable with family. Is it because of the environment I was in? I was anxious, so I violated that boundary against myself because I wasn't really in a comfortable space. Is it not just a physical state, but like an emotional state? Like just like I mentioned, anxiety, sometimes we don't think about things that we already been working hard on because we're just so stressed out about the scenario. In order for you to make sure that you're able to maintain that boundary the next time, you have to ask yourself what got in the way of violating it. And it's okay to understand that that's going to happen. When I'm talking to my patients about goals, or we're talking about boundaries or standards or expectations or anything, one of the first things we talk about is like, okay, so what are we going to do when we don't do the boundary? Like, what are we going to do when we let the boundary drop? What are we going to do when we miss the mark on our goal? So that you prepare for it, so you're not so far taken aback when you miss the mark. Like, oh, yeah, okay, so I was supposed to stick to this. I didn't stick to this. But in addition to talking about how I was going to stick to it, I talked to Dr. Martin about what I was going to do if I didn't stick to it. So it's not so like shocking. Because at the end of the day, it's amazing if you're able to achieve every single goal the first time. I think it's amazing to be God's favorite that way. But that is not me. And half the time, the thing that throws me for a loop is like, I didn't plan for this. Like, and it's like, well, why can't you plan for the time when you fall on your behind? You gonna fall on your behind. Like, so we gonna stay here, or we gonna get up and figure out what we're gonna do next. So boundaries guide your behaviors. Rules attempt to guide somebody else's. You're like, oh, I told you not to talk to me that way. That's a rule. Oh, I told you once you make me feel uncomfortable, I'm gonna have to leave. That's a boundary because you're controlling your body. You talk to me like you ain't had no sense, I'm gonna remove myself from the situation before I do the same to you. Like it could get crazy. So although you didn't have enough respect for me to talk to me that way, I have enough respect for myself to remove myself from the situation.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up because I remember having the conversation with my therapist after seeing your video, and I explained to my mom, I'm even having this. I sent it to my mom too, and we started talking about it. Let me tell you, it's been circulating in lots of group chats. Okay, that video, and so saying like, my boundary is like, I'm going to go to bed and I'm not going to answer my phone. The boundary is not, don't call me after 8:00. Yeah, that's the rule. Yeah. Telling people, right. So I always say like, I can control if I'm going to answer, because then if I answer the phone, then I broke my own, I broke the boundary.
Yeah, exactly. I see that with my students all the time. When we're going over the first semester, we're going over the syllabus for the first time, because I'm going to go over it like 50,000 times for the end of the semester. But I always state that like I'm very firm on boundaries and like not rules. And I explain to them like, so for example, I do not answer emails after 5 p.m. I am not telling you that you can't email me after 5 p.m. You guys decide what you're going to do, but I'm letting you know I don't reply to them after 5 p.m. So I will get to it the next day. And also, even I feel like so many times I'm at an HBCU, I'm at Tennessee State University, but so many times people don't understand appropriate ways for people to engage with you, like whether it's a supervisor or a colleague or a boss. It's because they've gone from scenario to scenario to scenario where they're consistently being inundated with this disrespect. So I also, like when I'm teaching my students, I understand it's not only my job to teach them like the course, I teach psychology of life experience and mental health, hip hop, and activism. I also want to teach them like how they should be treated. And I also want them to just like modeling, like how you should be treated, how anyone should talk to you. Because I always say the same thing, like I also don't reply to emails on weekends. I accept late assignments. Most of the time, that's the biggest fear. So I'm letting you know, I accept late assignments. You're emailing me on a weekend. There's no such thing as a TSU emergency from your professor. And if it is an emergency, I am not the Avengers, honey. Why are you calling me? You know what I'm saying? So I really try to also model like, yeah, you're coming here for school, but it's like the weekend. Why are you emailing me? Like, go hang out. Go have fun. I really want to model the fact that like school is never going to be the most important thing in your life, and insert that with work or insert that with like other things. And I think so many times people can't recognize that because they went through high school being like invalidated and told that like I come home and I do a bunch of homework, and then they go to college with disrespectful professors, and I come home and I do a lot of homework and I do it on the weekends, and then they go to work and their real career and it's the same thing, and they just have never had someone be like, why are you you emailing me on a Saturday, honey? I'm not thinking about you, and you shouldn't be thinking about me. Are you okay? Like, what's going on? So in addition to that, I feel like it's important for me to model that for my students too. Like, I talk to them the same way I talk to anyone else. I treat them with respect. My main rule is like, don't try to play me. Like you try to play me, the Philly comes out so quick. I accept late assignments, like You guys, even if you're not going to be in class, I'm just like, you don't have to tell me the reasoning for you not being in class, because like that's your personal private health information. I'm trying to make that an appropriate understanding. I don't even start taking attendance until like 20 minutes later to see if they're going to be late, But if you try to play me, I'd be like, yo, I'm the most chill professor y'all got. Like, are you serious? Why would you? Well, it's only going to go downhill from here for you. Because that was so unnecessary. You ain't got, like one of my students literally was like, I'll be real with you. I just didn't do the assignment. I forgot about it. Oh, okay. Well, you still have like 2 weeks to get it done because I accept late assignments. And she was like, oh, we still want to accept it? Yeah, I don't particularly care what, like it's, you're going to get a lower grade or whatever, but it's not like you're going to fail it, like you ain't got a lot of me. If you forgot, you forgot. I forget stuff all the time. Like what you expect me to stone you? That's not me. This shouldn't be your whole life. It isn't my whole life. I really try to model that. I think I also think people don't understand difference between like standards and expectations, but I think that's a different thing too, because more people talk about boundaries and rules. And I don't think enough people talk about, all right, so we talk about boundaries, we talk about rules, we talk about standards, we talk about expectations, we talk about ultimatums versus decisions. Like, like all of y'all need a vocab thing because y'all be like, they didn't do what I told them to do. Oh, really? Duh. Like, what you mean? What?
Right.
Why would they? What the heck?
Right. No, I'm so glad to, it's always encouraging when I hear a clinician, when you spoke about like modeling like the behavior that it is that you want to see from your students, and like I am huge on modeling the behavior that I want to see in terms of the people who support our organization. And I'm always like self-care, like just in terms of taking care of yourself. I remember there was someone on my team who said, I can't meet. Like, no, they said I can meet, but I'm not feeling well, but I'm going to leave my camera off because I'm not feeling well. So I'm like, well, why don't they just reschedule?
Yeah.
So she says, well, at my full-time job, it's in the culture where people still take meetings, but they just say, oh, I'm sick, I'll leave my camera off. Well, in this culture, that's not how we get down in here. I was like, no, it's okay. Like, let's reschedule, because if I'm not feeling well, you best believe I am going to reschedule. And I don't care if I'm physically or mentally not feeling well, I am going to reschedule. Yeah. And I remember this person telling me like, oh my God, this is like the first time I ever, like someone, I didn't really give you permission, but I guess she felt empowered to be like, oh, I can actually say like, oh, I'm not feeling well, so can we reschedule? Mm-hmm. But she said she's never been in an environment that has allowed her to do that. So when you said that, I'm like, let me get my little self pat on the back, because I think it's super important for people to see that.
Well, yeah, and I think it's kind of like the way I parent too, right? Like, and it's the way I think most people should parent. I want my children to be so steeped in like love from family members and understanding what accountability looks like and respect, and just having an environment that like appreciates their critical thinking, that as soon as they enter a world or an environment that doesn't respect that or doesn't like foster that in them, their red flags go off because they're so used to the healthy version that the unhealthy version is glaring, right? And I don't think many people have that. And I think that's generational wealth too, right? Like, it's never too late. I did a talk at the conference for National Black Child Development Institute, and an older woman, she stopped me and she said, I just want to thank you so much. She had to be like 70 minimum. It's hard to tell because, Black people, I never know. But she did say grandchild. Right. So I was like, okay, I don't know, like the melanin, and we're using more sunscreen now too. It's only gonna get better. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like this is heat damaged Black skin. You see what I'm saying? Like now it's only gonna get, it's gonna get harder to like tell our ages. But she was like, I definitely want to call my daughter after this because I made a point to mention that like it's never too late to contribute to like building generational bonds. I'm all here for, giving the older generation their props for what they did to survive. And I want them to also acknowledge that like you need to give us props for what we're trying to do to thrive. We can acknowledge that you did your best, and we can also acknowledge that you didn't have enough to give us what was the best.
People with lived experience, Jordan and I know firsthand what it's like to have suicidal thoughts. But this is not an isolated experience. Sadly, suicide rates among Black communities are rising. But together, we can make a difference. Your support helps us to provide crucial resources and create change. Donate today by texting STOP SUICIDE to 53555. Your contribution, it empowers our mission and supports those in need. Thank you for your continued support of our organization and podcast. Together, we can bring hope and healing.
Right. And that's not on you. Like sometimes they feel attacked like, well, you're attacking my parenting style. I gave you all I had. And I said, right. And can you acknowledge that even you didn't have enough? And that's not saying that you didn't have enough because you weren't trying. It's because you generationally weren't given the right tools. So you gave me everything and you should have had more. And I would have had more. And that's not me attacking you. I can acknowledge what you did to survive. I want you to acknowledge that my goal is to do more than survive. My goal is to thrive. And I can understand the disconnect. And I think in my speech, I was like, we want to thank you, but we also want you to know that like, we're doing different stuff now. And like, we also feel like you deserve the aspect of rest. I put a threads up today, like my ancestors dreamed of rest too. Because so many times people would be like, oh, this is what my ancestors dreamed of, CEO, Maserati, all this. And I'm like, I've got to believe that my ancestors also dreamed about rest. And us having community. I'm sure my ancestors dreamed of just being able to watch their children grow up. I'm sure my ancestors dreamed about just having books. When I moved down here to Nashville,
Dr. Martin.
I'm sorry. It's just like every time I think about this, I love my husband so much. Honestly, I love my husband more than I hate Nashville. But my God, before we got our house, we were staying at this, we had an apartment. And the apartment had like, it was like a random, it looked like it was like a museum, or it was like down the hill. It wasn't with the apartment, but it was like headed towards and stuff like that. Which is always a red flag down south, because the one thing that they love touring down here are plantation. And I remember like looking up the location I was staying at, the whole apartment, and it used to be a plantation. I'll never forget. I told my husband, I was like, I left Hopkins to live on what used to be a plantation. Oh my God, I am gonna lose my mind. And it used to be a plantation. I would go on walks with my son down the hill, and I couldn't help but like think, it's crazy. Like I get to walk with my boys, and I only had one at that time. I get to walk him, and we would take walks, but I could just only imagine what it would be like, and it's people just going like it's everyday natural thing. And it's just like, this place used to be a plantation. And this is where I live now. It's not where I live now, but I'll never forget it. I was just like, simmering rage, just simmering. It's not even simmering half the time. Most of the time, it's very present. It's obvious. But like, I couldn't believe it. But when people mention that, I'm like, that's generational wealth too. Like I get to watch my children grow up, and I think we need to take that a step farther. It's like we get to watch our children grow up, and we have the opportunity to do that, and we can do that even more if we take care of our body. And we have to take care of our body by taking care of our mind as well. So no one takes stress seriously enough. No one takes chronic stress seriously enough. No one. Like it's insane. Capitalism is the epitome of productivity over people, and we're sitting here trying to achieve these goals that I don't think matter as much as like, I don't know. Yeah, I can have the best job title. All I care about is seeing my babies grow as much as I can see them grow. And like, I would think our ancestors dreamed of that too. Like,
Absolutely.
Like, so when people put that with, oh, my ancestors' wildest dream and all these like tangible things and these other things, and I'm like, I bet you your ancestors dreamed of not being told that they're not allowed to cry because they're boys. I bet you your ancestors dreamed of being able to be in a supportive community. I bet you your ancestors dreamed of not having to answer their boss's call at 4 a.m. in the morning on a weekend. Rest is our ancestors' dream too. Like if we're our ancestors while the stream, go sit down. Like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
What? Go sit down. What is this? Your
Right.
ancestor ain't tell you needed to open another property, honey. I don't recall anyone telling you that. Sit down. Take a minute.
Rest. Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up because I always say rest is productive.
Mm-hmm.
It's because of when you talk about living in America in capitalism, we live in a very much a grind culture, and how that impacts our mental health or our psychological fortitude, whatever you want to call it. And I'm huge on checking myself. I have to check myself because I am a high achiever.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy, and I'm passionate about the work that I do. So it's easy for me to sometimes just work, and I'm like, wait, hold up, girl. Like, how much have you been working?
Yeah.
So I have to constantly tell myself, and even when I did take a vacation, I came back from St. Thomas last week, and Dr. Martin, I kid you not, I had to tell myself, sit your ass down. Yeah. It was so hard for me to and I'm gonna say should, because we say we don't should on ourselves.
Yeah, I always say nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see you should all over yourself, honey.
Like, so don't do that. But while I was on vacation, because I'm a high achiever, and I'm just like, it's a part of my personality that it felt a little uncomfortable to not do anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm proud of myself. I did not bring my laptop. I didn't bring my iPad. I left my work phone at home. I only brought my personal phone. I deleted Gmail and all my email apps off my phone because I was like, no, girl, you have to rest.
Yeah.
So I was very proud of myself, but I said that it was actually hard. It may seem like something easy for other people to do, but for me, it was actually very hard.
I can objectively tell you that it's not easy for most people. I don't think it's easy for most people, especially Black people, because a lot of times we feel, this was embedded in us as a way, like this aspect of injected oppression. So there's a court, like when you think about oppression, there's so many different aspects of it, but internalized oppression is one aspect of it. When I'm teaching my students about this in Psych of the Black experience, I always say, like, you only have to tell somebody they're stupid 5 times. They will call themselves stupid the 6th. That is internalized oppression. But you have to think of the injected portion of it. The injected portion comes before the internalized portion, right? I called you stupid 5 times before you called yourself stupid the 6th. It goes from injected oppression, all of these messages that we're getting overtly or covertly, implicitly, explicitly about our worth being tied to what we can provide. And then we take that in ourselves, right? So I can objectively tell you, you're not the only person who feels it hard. A lot of times we felt as though we have to earn rest. And even then, we don't even know if we're worthy of it. And you're worthy of it just because of your existence, right? Like we're entering into a place where rights are transitioning to privilege every single day. Like, oh, rest is a privilege. Rest is a right. But we are getting to a point where it seems like it's out of reach for so many different people. So yeah, you're not the only person who struggles with that, especially since most Black people go into their career paths in certain things because they want to contribute to their community in a certain way. So it's not just work to us. It's family. It's like, I want to provide something that I would have benefited from. Think about the reason why you and your co-host created your organization, as well as the reason why you do this podcast, is because it's more than just a recording for you. This is a way for you to be activists and mental health activists and contributing to providing resources to people out there. It's not just work. And because that's something that you value, it is going to be a greater pull. The same way you let your co-host know, girl, don't come up in here. Right. Like the same way you let your co-host know, like it's really important to live by that. So it's not just hard for you. It's hard for so many people. But I'm gonna tell anybody listening the same thing I tell my children. Just because it's hard doesn't mean you get to opt out of doing it. Like you sitting with that discomfort, you mentioned it being uncomfortable. Yeah, I bet it's uncomfortable for me to sit down. So I figure out something to do. I bring a book, or I'll bring like I crochet a lot. But just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean I'm not going to do it. I used to be so uncomfortable with taking time for myself away from my boys because I was just obsessed with them. I'm still obsessed with them, but it's it's no longer like stand mode anymore. But I just didn't want to like step away from them, especially since they always wanted me. And yeah, they're always going to want me, but that doesn't mean they get me, So like even when I would step away and I would feel real bad about it, I would still do it. Like I would be like, I remember sometimes I would be like crying on the way, like I should go back, but I didn't. I called my friends and be like, y'all, girl, I feel so bad. Shut up. Are we going to get dinner or not? Like, and it was because like they knew my goals. I would have to, you have to speak it out and let people know who are going to hold you accountable, right? Like if I say I'm not about to do all this extra stuff, and I know people I talk to every day, so if I'm doing something extra, I'm going to tell them. When I tell them, they'd be like, "Oh, well, good luck. Make sure you email them and tell them no, because I know you told me that wasn't a goal of yours." You have to have people who hold you accountable. And it's really easy not to have people, it's really easy to miss your goals when you're not writing them down and when you're not telling people. So if I was like, I could have cried boohoo and I had told my friend, like, I need to spend more time away. Cool. So like, go ahead and cry. Wipe your face off before we walk into this restaurant so you don't embarrass me. Somebody think I hit you in the car or something. But like, let's go. Like, girl, you can cry into this breadbasket. Shut up. That is how my friends talk. That's how they talk to me, like, boo-hoo, whatever. Them kids just came out of you. My God, let them know their dad. Get out of here. Like they don't need nothing. They don't need you. That man is fine. And then I come home, they find children on the couch. Oh, my husband will be like, oh, I thought you were staying out later. Well, dang. Jude, like I kid you not, every single time he'd be like, I got this. I mean, I don't really hear the crying the same way you do, so like he'd be like, oh, are they still crying? Huh. Okay. like so you but I'll say also like the reason why a lot of people don't meet their goals is because they're not telling other people their goals. And some people do that on purpose because they know individuals will hold them accountable. Some of y'all don't tell people your goals because darn well that means you actually gonna have to achieve them. Like you know that if you tell somebody like I swear I'm not gonna get another degree just because I'm bored, and then you tell your friend that you registered for another degree, they are gonna tear that behind up. They're gonna be like, you lie. How so like you wonder why you're not achieving your goals. Do you have somebody to hold you accountable? And don't think it's just you. We very much can get to a space where we hold ourselves accountable, like, but most of us are not starting there. So like for certain things, tell someone else about it because you're not going to do a good job.
Yeah. Dr. Martin, let me say this. I am the accountability friend. I have a friend who knows, like, she's not going to tell me because she knows I'm going to hold her accountable.
Exactly.
And she was like, yeah, no, I already know. She was like, and not only that, you start digging, you start asking me the harder questions and you start making me think. And she's like, yeah, I don't want to do all of that.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense. And so like, I have even someone came to me and was like, hey, can you hold me accountable? This grant is due. And I was like, okay, what's your deadline? They was like, dang, what is your deadline?
And that's
like,
how you can tell they used to people just paying lip service to the accountability. How am I gonna hold you accountable if I don't even know the details? I'm not gonna just say, okay.
Right.
Like.
And they know. So yeah, I am that people. I'm the accountability friend. They're like, oh yeah, if you go to Takia, she is going to hold you accountable. So it's so interesting you brought that up. Before, I know we're getting down on time, I did want to ask you though about, especially when we're talking, like you did give I felt like you gave a personal example, like about in terms of like boundaries and rules, like as being like a mom.
Yeah.
But what would be like a good, I guess, practical or like easy way when we're talking like about parenting parents or even like educators in terms of like what could look, because some people feel overwhelmed, or they think if they set a boundary, my kid gonna be mad at me. They not gonna talk to me, or like, so how can people kind of get to working to get maybe a little bit more comfortable with setting the boundaries? Because some people are afraid to, and I think even sometimes with parents, they could struggle with like, oh, I don't want my child to be upset.
Oh, well, if your child's upset, they're upset. Like, what is that? Listen, it's not my job to protect my child from feeling every single emotion out there. It's my job to be there present for them, to help them process that. My child knows the term, like, I need space, because like, he knows to say that to people because I say that to him. It's not my job to protect my child from discomfort. And I don't ever want anyone to shield him from experiencing any aspect of emotional discomfort, because you cannot learn to regulate or manage or deal with or process emotions you don't have. So like, oh yeah, your child might be pissed. Okay. What's best for you is going to be what's best for your family, right? You are going to get touched out. You're going to be over emotionally stimulated. You're not going to be able to even regulate yourself, which means you're not going to be able to co-regulate your child. My children don't like the fact that they don't go everywhere with me. Oh my youngest would climb back in the room if I allowed him to. Sometimes when I need a break, and it's like my typical break time, I'm going to the gym, I literally have to rip him off me to give him to my husband. And I go in there, get in my car, bump some Lil' Kim or Megan right to the gym, and I still go. Does it suck? Yes, it absolutely sucks, because I don't want to hear my child cry. But I also don't want my child to think that I'm going to prioritize them over myself every single time. My children are not my world. They're a planet within my galaxy. But there are so many things that contribute to my health and well-being. So if there are some parents who fear like, oh, my child is going to hate me for prioritizing yourself, for showing them what it looks like to have someone who takes care of themselves, you're showing them that you're taking care of yourself. And if they hate you, give them a fruit snack. You know what I'm saying? Like, kids are not. But I think the biggest thing is like, it really is, you know, as a black person, a black woman, you do what you have to do to be able to do what you want to do. It's not my job to protect my child from experiencing any form of discomfort in this world. How the heck are they going to grow? Anytime stuff gets too tough, anytime that you don't agree with it, anytime things get too uncomfortable, you're just not going to do it. You're not going to make it far. You're not going to make it far. So I can understand feeling uncomfortable with that and feeling like they're going to hate you. One, they're not going to hate you. You saying that you need space is the ultimate thing, because you stepping away provides you the opportunity to be more present with them in the future. If you're with them 24/7, you're not going to be able to, I don't know, not snap at them. Why wouldn't you snap? Like, golly, you ain't never get no break with them. The only great break you get from your kids is when you're unconscious. You only get to have a break from them in your dreams. My God, right. Of course you snapped at them. You know, like that's totally understandable. And even with like educators, I also feel like, you know, at some point we get to this point where we need to prepare the children for the world. My world is not a world where people don't respect my humanity. My world is not a world where people don't understand that things come up. I've had to nurse my children during meetings. I have forgotten time zones and you get fired for it. Like, sometimes educators are more tough on students, and they're like, I'm preparing them for the world. What world are you preparing them for? Because it's not the world that I reside in, you know? So like, I think it's important to state that, and also realize that like sometimes people say, once again, with the wording that like, oh, self-care, and they already like back down from it. These are survival techniques. These are your survival strategies. So if it feels too soft to say self-care, be like, these are what I need to contribute to this world and contribute to myself. These are my survival strategies. That's it.
Ooh, survival strategies. I have to use that one.
Like, because people, like, words really do get in the way of people, and they're just like, oh, self-care. Oh, what are you saying? Get your nails done? No, I mean self-care, meaning like I don't respond to emails on the weekends. I don't stay in places that make me feel unsafe. I am not going to, I don't know, go to a party with, I don't know, certain, say you're like living sober. Like, I'm not going to dinner with this one person because it's like they can't have a meal without 5 drinks, and that's going to make me relapse. So my survival strategy is like, no, I'm not going out to eat with you because you have no sense. And I've told you multiple times I don't drink, and every time I'm with you, you act like you didn't know Long Island iced tea and had no iced tea, you know. So like these are survival strategies, and don't feel like you need to stray away from them to be uncomfortable. You know what's going to be more uncomfortable? When you snap at that child because they've been touching you, like they've been up under you all the time. It's going to be more uncomfortable going to that specialist that you have to go to because the chronic stress has really started to deteriorate your body. You make time for health and you make time for illness. And you don't get to opt out just because it makes you uncomfortable. There are so many things that make me uncomfortable that you already do. That's another thing. You already do so many things that you don't want to do that make you uncomfortable. Why not do things that also lead to you doing better? You feel like you can have 6 months of discomfort for extra like lifetime of feeling better about yourself. And a lot of times I'll help people do this whole aspect of like spiritual bypassing, which is like thinking that if you pray enough, it'll be taken away or give it to God. And I really want you to understand just from a spirituality piece, because Black people are so spiritual. And I totally understand that it was all that we had to keep us going. You have to believe that God put people like you on this earth to guide you in the right direction. God,
say that again, Dr. Martin.
You have to believe that God put people like you on this earth to help you. God works through people. You have psychiatrists, you have counselors, you have like clinical social workers, you have professional counselors, you have licensed marriage therapists. God works through people. The same way you feel as though he provides a message to your deacon and your pastor, your deaconess, you don't feel as though he provided the opportunity for me to serve and contribute to you in this way. So God works through people as well. You over here praying that, oh, please take this away from me. And then you see an ad for therapy for Black girls, or Black Girls Smile, or therapy for Black men, or a Black men's safe haven, or inclusive therapy. And you're like, that's a lot of ads. Well, let me go to church. Have some sense.
Yes. Yes. Right. I always say that, like, I have asthma, right? We always say, if I was having an asthma attack, nobody would be like, Takia, just pray. Y'all gonna be like, take this girl to the hospital so she can get some steroids.
And also, like, somebody needs to evaluate her mind, because this woman over here, she talking about she don't need her inhaler. She needs help.
Right.
So also give her a mental health workup, because Takia done lost her mind.
Right. I'm gonna just pray that I can start breathing again. Like
God sent us here. Like God made this opportunity. If you are gonna honor the life that God gives you, I can only expect you to honor the body and the mind that He gave you as well by taking care of it. I say that all the time when I'm doing the mental health and the spirituality piece. If you really want to honor God, honor the body He gave you. You're going to destroy the body that He gave you. Wow, that don't seem like honoring God to me.
Like, well, before you go,
yes,
because I know I'm trying to be respectful of your time. I could talk to you all day. I've been waiting for this conversation.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the invite. I responded quickly.
I was so shocked. I was like, because first I was going to have somebody of the team reach. I was like, no, I'm reaching out to Dr. Martin.
I really appreciate the invite.
So I was like, I don't know. I was like, she kind of big. I don't know if she gonna do something for little old Black people.
I'm only here to help the Black community. Like anyone asks what I focus on, specialize in is Black mental health. He, she, and they. That's what I focus on. So like,
right.
There's nothing that's little when it comes to like helping our own. Please, like, yeah. So I appreciate you inviting me here.
Absolutely. I thank you for just really all the work that you're doing. It is so needed. I share your resources all the time with people. I share your videos. Like if they in my circle, if people know about you in my circle, it's probably because I
try to provide so much free game. Like I totally understand. Like my caseload is full. I teach my students, but like anytime there's the two like issues and stuff, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna make an ebook about. Like I really try to provide so many resources. Therapy is not the only path to healing. Community.
Yes.
Now that path may not include therapy, but it will include community, because you cannot heal in isolation. So I try to provide like, hey, y'all, I got another free. Somebody was like, you provide a lot of free stuff. I was like, yep, because my caseload is full. Hey, y'all, I got another ebook. Hey, y'all, I got another video on this. Can I see you individually? You cannot. But what you can do is download this. I got a free workshop in my mental health community. Like, just use all the stuff I give you, y'all, because my caseload is full, and my patients, I mean, at this point, they're kind of being ornery about this, but I doubt they're going to. Yeah.
Yes. So I really do appreciate everything that you do for the community. It is so important. That's one of the reasons why we host our Black and Suicidal, like our peer support groups, because we want people to know, like, this is a safe space. Now, one of our board members is a clinician, because I know my lane.
Yeah.
So I'm like, just making sure, just in case we got to do a breakout room and somebody start having, you know, a heightened emotional response. But we do. And I remember like in the group, someone said, oh my God, this is the first time I've ever felt reaffirmed. I feel safe.
Amazing.
This is something I look forward to. I almost bawled in that group. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I almost bawled. She said, I've never felt reaffirmed in my life. This is such a reaffirmment and I feel safe.
It's community.
And people have, yes, that's where you talk about the community. People have been coming from Canada, logging into our support groups, and it's been great. And so before you go, I know you have a lot of things that you do, but I want to give you an opportunity to just plug in whatever you want to plug. I know you have your community, any speaking engagements, or how people can reach out to you, or anything you want to share.
Yeah, so I have a podcast, Mind Your Mental podcast, that comes out every week on Tuesday. We've had some great guests this season. Tabitha Brown, Kev on the Fredericks, Kev on stage, and Mrs. Kev on stage. We have had Raquel Willis. We've had Amanda Seals. Like, it's been a great season so far. I also have a mental health community, Mind Your Mental. So my podcast is called Mind Your Mental, and then my mental health community is called Mind Your Mental. It has the community aspect of like message boards, and I do challenges and stuff, but you also get access to workshops. And also fun stuff. Like this Tuesday, or Wednesday, I did a watch party for the show Unprisoned because I just love that show. And then TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, everywhere is Raquel Martin, PhD. If you're trying to like reach out via email. I suck at DMs, and anytime I like mention caring about anyone, you know, let's say we talk about like Palestine or Haiti or the Congo, like, my DMs get crazy. So like, if you want to contact me or book me, reach out to me like an adult. You send me an email. Okay. Talking about people will be like, oh, I DM'd you. Okay. I don't know. You reach out to me. Listen, I am an old lady. Email me. If you could send me a letter. So, I put it in your DM. Well, what you want me to do with that?
Probably gonna get lost in the sauce.
Like I can't read all of them because some of them are honestly like legit real mean, and it doesn't really impact me. I really do think I have the skin for this, but it's also just like, I mean, there's only so many times you're gonna call me everything but a child of God before like I'm gonna have to get off my phone because you're tripping. You know, this is an odd thing to do. So Raquel Martin, PhD, on Facebook, Instagram, everywhere, and then if you're trying to reach out for booking, it's just admin at Raquel Martin, PhD.
Oh, this has truly been a pleasure. Thank you so much. I appreciate
everything you do. You having like a support group and having another resource to like provide opportunities for people. That's amazing. So thank you for what you do. Like, and one of the things that I think contributes to a lot of people making bad decisions or taking on cases they shouldn't be taking is that they don't have access to resources such as yours, where people who actually have the expertise can be referred to. So like, thank you. Because like, just community is always going to be on the path to healing. Always. You can't heal in isolation. You may have a minute where you need to take a step back, but you're always going to need to reintegrate. So thank you, one, for having me, and two, for just having such an amazing community and resource. I think it's great that you are reaching so many people. You probably going to need some help with scaling, so make sure you get some assistance. You can't do it all.
But you are correct.
And I'm not saying that to throw my name in a hat because I suck at that as well. I'm just saying just to let you know that that's something, you know, like I don't know anything about business scaling. I am terrible at it. I just got a part-time assistant a month ago, and people like don't even understand how I do it. I do teach full-time. I do have a caseload. I do have publications. I just had a couple of chapters come out. I do the podcast. I do the mental health community. Mom, wife, just got an assistant to help me a couple weeks ago, you know, like, so like, I'm not the person to help you, but I recognize game. And like, you look familiar. We both need it, you know, so I can recognize if somebody need help with scaling, because I too, it's just looking at the person in the mirror. So like, make sure you get that.
Yes.
Hopefully.
I'm letting you know. Thank you for saying that. I too am the same, because Black people die by suicide too. It's just the new kid on the block. Yeah. But before I was doing this, I still have my consulting business. So yes, and I do have a part-time admin. It's been like about six weeks now, and she makes my life so much better. So we are here with you when we're talking about that. Speaking, I'm doing trainings, and then this organization that I had no intentions on starting. Yeah. So it has been, so when you say it, I'm like, yeah. And on top of that, you're a mom. So I don't have kids. So I'm like, it's a little, so that's another, another thing as well. So I know it's not easy. I don't know how you do it all.
I have an amazing support system. My husband is fantastic. And I also I'll just say stuff that I'm not doing. The part-time assistant is, but I'm also working on making sure that I'm building a team. And I also know it's okay to say no. And I have a good resource list where it's just I can't do the speaking engagement, but here are some amazing names of people you can. Because sometimes the thing that drives us to say yes is that we can understand the work is good. We want to help, but you can also make that might not be your opportunity. That's someone else's opportunity. So I'm also getting even better at being this is not my opportunity, but here's a list of amazing people who this could be their opportunity. Reach out to them.
I too do that. So we're on the same boat. I do that all the time.
We might just be the vessel. We the conduit to put them in contact with that person.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Dr. Martin. It has, again, truly been a pleasure. And I'm looking forward to definitely staying in contact, of course, with you. If there's anything that I can do to support any of the work that you're doing, I think that it is truly great. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Moving right along to the spotlight segment. So if you're new here, every episode we highlight someone who has died by suicide. And so for this episode, this week's spotlight, we're highlighting Lowell Hawthorne, who was the founder and CEO of Golden Krust Caribbean Bakery and Grill. He died by suicide at the age of 57 on December 2nd, 2017. What stands out to me as it relates to his suicide is that he was very successful. So he was the CEO. Most people, we think about people who are successful and have a lot of money and have all the, and have a high paying job or entrepreneur. We automatically assume that people who have lots of materialistic things and money, that why would they struggle with their mental health? There's a lot of speculation about why he may have ended his life. I'm not going to feed into that, but I will say that it's so important for us to remember that while yes, financial stress can contribute to someone taking their life in terms of not having enough money to pay your bills day to day, but people can have all the money and all the resources in the world and still struggle with their mental health. And so I just want to take this time to honor Lowell Hawthorne and just saying that this is why we do the work that we do with Black People Die by Suicide, because we want people to know that they're not alone. And specifically Black people, we are struggling. We are definitely struggling. And so we honor you and we thank you, and your legacy will continue to be at the forefront of why we're doing this work. And y'all, if you're watching on YouTube, y'all may notice my background changed. When I was recording the episode with Dr. Martin, I noticed that my lighting was off, and I did not want to stop in the middle of the episode to do that because we kind of had the ball rolling. So I just had to change the direction that I was sitting in. So if you're watching, you're like, why her background changed? When Dr. Martin left, I had to switch my whole camera setup on my laptop. So that's what that is. So for our resource segment, it is, of course, going to be the Mind Your Mental podcast, as well as Mind Your Mental, the community by the esteemed and the amazing Dr. Raquel Martin. Mind Your Mental is a podcast, but it's also a community, and it seeks to educate, empower, and uplift those seeking guidance for their mental and emotional well-being. So, of course, anything that we mentioned will be in the description box so that you can click that link. And I would encourage you use all the resources that you can get from Dr. Martin. Dr. Martin, as she mentioned, she has tons of free mental health resources. If we want to focus on our mental health, and if money sometimes can be a barrier, or maybe we're not ready to take that leap of faith, there are tons of mental health free resources. For our Oh my God segment. Y'all, it feels so weird doing this podcast without Jordan, but she'll be back. She'll be back. Oh my God, y'all. So only white people kill themselves. I know we've talked about that a little bit on the podcast. We may have some new people here. That's why our name is Black People Die by Suicide too, because we want to say this is not a white thing, y'all. We have often told that when white people lose their money and that's when they want to kill themselves because they don't have any more money. And Black people don't do that because, we overcame slavery and we're strong and we're resilient. Yes, we are a strong and resilient people, but we live in America and it's hard to be Black. So that's the Oh my God segment. Basically, it's a segment, if you're new, where people say off the wall things about mental health. Like the kids say the darndest things, but this is more so people say the darndest things as relates to mental health. So that's the Oh my God segment. We have to stop saying that only white people kill themselves or it's only a white thing. That's not true. We have to dismantle that. And for our community Changemaker segment, I am so excited about this person. I'm overall excited about a lot of people because I meet so many amazing people, or I know of a lot of amazing Black people who are doing great work. And this community Changemaker is Dr. Thelma Bryant. If you don't know who she is, you need to get on your Googles, okay? You need to get on your Google or get on Instagram, okay? Dr. Thelma Bryant, she's a psychologist, she's a professor, she's a researcher, and she directs the Culture and Trauma Research Laboratory. Dr. Thelma Bryant is a psychologist, professor, researcher, and directs the Culture and Trauma Research Laboratory at Pepperdine University. Dr. Bryant is also the author of Thriving in the Wake of Trauma, a Multicultural Guide and Homecoming, Overcoming Fear and Trauma to Reclaim Your Whole Authentic Self. She also, I remember she did a poem or like spoken word at Essence Fest last year in 2023, y'all. It was From the Ashes We Rise. I don't know if that was the name of the poem, but though that phrase or that line stood out to me. From the ashes we rise. And so she also has published tons of articles in journals. She has also published in tons of journals. So the Counseling Psychologist, Professional Psychology, Research and Practice, and Trauma, Violence, and Abuse. So she has tons of articles. You can definitely check out Dr. Thelma Bryant. You will see all of the amazing work that she has done and is currently doing for the Black community. So shout out to you, Dr. Thelma Bryant. We thank you so much for the work that you're doing and for being a beacon of light and hope in our community. For our announcements, y'all, and if you're watching on YouTube, y'all, I got my iPad over here. I got my notes because I'm trying to make sure I stay on track, okay? For our events that we have coming up, I would tell y'all to stay tuned because we're still trying to figure out a date for our August peer support group. So if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, that's one. Or if you're not following us on Instagram so you can stay informed, that's two. I want to encourage y'all to go to our website, www.blackpeoplediebysuicide2.org, and you can sign up for our newsletter. So that way you can get the exact date for when we are going to host our August Black Peer and Suicidal Support Group. At the time of this recording, we don't have a date solidified just yet. So when you're listening to this, we will have a date by that time. So make sure you check us out on Instagram, or either that you go to our website, and you can also learn more about our support groups there. For our self-care, like the usual check-in. Oh, actually, y'all, let me go back. So it's August when y'all listening to this. In September, y'all, we have three events that's coming up in September for National Suicide Prevention Month. Plus our Black and Suicidal Peer Support Group will have that too. But we have 3 events that are happening. One virtually, 2 virtually, which one of the virtual is a webinar. One of them will be a support group. And then we have 2 in person. One that will be in the city of Annapolis, Maryland, and the other one will be in the city of Baltimore, Maryland. So y'all stay tuned for that. At the time of this recording, we're still working out the logistics, but y'all, we want to see y'all, especially we having a brunch, y'all. It's going to be like a kickback with a DJ, a little turn up, but it's a fundraiser. Y'all don't want to miss it. If you are in the DMV, or if you want to travel to come to this brunch that we're having, the food going to be great. I'm going to give y'all more details on that a little bit later, but I just got to give y'all a little tease because September about to be popping for Black people die by suicide too, okay? For our self-care check-in, oh, y'all, what have I been doing for self-care, y'all? Well, I did go on a little vacation. So I know Dr. Martin talked about like self-care can be a vacation, but it's not solely like it's not just spending a lot of money, and it's not just making sure that, in terms of, we don't want to make it seem like it's unattainable. Self-care can be free, but at this time I needed to get away, y'all. The stress of the organization has really impacted me in ways that I can't get into all the details. I'm gonna wait for Jordan to come back so that we can, I can share my perspective. She can share her perspective. But the growth of the organization has been stressful. We do have amazing volunteers. We do have an amazing administrative and executive assistant. Shout out to Destiny, y'all. Destiny, she helped me say, kind of help me keep my sanity a little bit, because running a nonprofit is very hard, especially with limited resources, y'all. As much I love all things Black people die by suicide too. I love that we're growing. I love that we're getting popular. More people are learning about us, but it does take a lot to start a nonprofit. And I already have a consulting business. So I had to take time to pull away, and I didn't want to be bothered with anybody. You know how sometimes people are like, I just want to go away and I just want to be left alone. That was me. I didn't want to be bothered with anybody. I barely was on my cell phone. I didn't have any emails or anything like that. I read, I slept in, I got a massage, I relaxed. Like, I didn't want to really be bothered with anybody. I did post a picture of me in a cute bathing suit, on Instagram. I did like check in one time to be like, hey, I'm still here. But I really wasn't like on social media. Like, I really needed time to unplug. And that's what I did for self-care, because I had to. And there's something else that I'm working on for self-care. I'm also trying to work on some things in the organization to make sure that I am taking care of myself and protecting myself as it relates to the foundation and the structure, or the infrastructure of the organization, because I have taken on more responsibilities because of the organizational changes and the challenges. And I've been doing a lot more when I was already doing a lot, and it just has been becoming too much. So part of self-care is also us getting infrastructure as well as finances, so that way we can outsource and hire people to do other things, so that way we don't have to do so much. But shout out to our amazing volunteers. We have about 20 volunteers, And they have been excited. They have been supporting us for the past few months. And it's about 20, I think, of y'all. So shout out to all of y'all. We're going to have a few of our volunteers come in and pop up on the podcast so they can share their experience of what it's like supporting the organization. So that's what I've been doing for self-care. I want to encourage y'all to follow us on social media. And for our moment of inspiration, is a quote by Eleanor Brown, and it is, "Rest and self-care are so important. When you take time to replenish your spirit, it allows you to serve others from the overflow. You cannot serve from an empty vessel." And I hope that you take that message with you and you get it into your spirit, and to know that, like, that's part of the reason why I asked Jordan to step away and to focus on herself, because we cannot give from an empty cup. That's part of the reason why I stepped away. And I said, let's just take the month of July off from podcasting, because I was giving from my cup instead of my overflow. So I want to encourage y'all to do whatever it is that you need to do. As Dr. Martin said, survival skills. Like, what do you need to do to survive? Like, these are things that I have to do to survive if self-care feels too abstract for you. So we want to encourage you to give from your overflow and not to give from your cup. So thank you so much for tuning into a solo episode with just me, Takia, on Black People Die by Suicide 2 podcast. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you for tuning in. We encourage you to share this episode, subscribe to the YouTube channel, share our clips on social media, engage with our content, share it with other people, comment, all that good things. But again, thank you so much for supporting us, and we will catch y'all, or I will catch you on the next episode. And Jordan will be back, y'all. Join us this September in honor of National Suicide Prevention Month for our Kickback Brunch fundraiser, taking steps to prevent suicide in the Black community. This event aims to raise awareness, build community connections, and support our suicide prevention initiatives. This will be a relaxed environment with some amazing food by the Empanada Lady and live music by DJ Tony. You need to come and bring your sneaker A game and be a part of our mission to step forward and save lives from suicide. This is a sneaker theme event, so for all my sneakerheads, I need y'all to come, like I said, with your sneaker A game. This event will feature raffles, games, and so much more, and it's a fun way and meaningful way to contribute to our crucial cause. So if you're passionate about mental health advocacy, and you just looking for a good time with great company, this event is for you. So come hungry, bring your energy, and let's make a difference together. Your presence and support can help change lives. So get your tickets. We only have a limited number of tickets. So once they sell out, y'all, that's it. You don't want to miss this. Me and Jordan look forward to seeing y'all. And we are so excited. We just cannot wait. So make sure y'all get y'all tickets on Eventbrite, or you can go to our Instagram and find it there. But we look forward to seeing y'all.